The federal style was popular from about 1800 to 1840. Balance and symmetry are the key features of this style and can be seen in the arrangement of windows, chimneys, doors, porches, and balustrades. Because the Oregon Historic District is the oldest platted residential neighborhood and was saved from demolition during the 1970s, it has the largest concentration of federal-style buildings in Dayton. The Dayton History Patterson Homestead on Brown Street is also a stellar example of federal-style architecture. The simple formal style includes low roof lines, chimneys often on the outside of walls, and typically no porches, or smaller, simpler porches. Windows are usually arranged in rows that line up horizontally and are composed of 6/6 multiple panes of glass. A wooden door with a half-glass panel is the dominant door design in Dayton homes built in this style. The classical or Greek revival style gets its name from the use of columns and moldings from classical Greek architecture. It was popular from 1825 until around 1860. The Daniel Fitch House in Wright Dunbar Village and the old Montgomery County Courthouse are two of the finest examples of Greek revival architecture in Dayton. The Oregon Historic District also has a large number of Greek revival homes. Classical or Greek revival homes typically feature an elaborate half-glass door surround with a transom. A wide cornice usually caps the structures under a low-pitched roof. Pilasters at the corners and surrounding the entrance are also typical of the Greek revival style. Other features include a shallow-pitched hip roof, which is supported by a heavy projecting cornice with brackets, dentils, and blind panels. Porches are usually simple with flat roofs supported with square wood columns, brackets, and dentils. The windows often have bracketed lintels and wide wooden surrounds with 6/6 glass panels. The Gothic revival style flourished from 1840 to 1860. This style is part of the mid-19th century picturesque and romantic movement in architecture and reflects the public's taste for buildings inspired by medieval design. This was a real departure from the previously popular styles that drew inspiration from the classical forms of ancient Greece and Rome. Gothic revival homes can be found in Oregon, Huffman, and the Wright Dunbar Village historic districts. Dayton's finest example of Gothic revival architecture is at 20 Livingston Avenue. The pointed arch used for windows, doors, and decorative elements like porches, dormers, and roof gables is a common feature of their Gothic revival style. Gingerbread or delicate incised wooden trim called verge boards or barge boards also dominates this style. Other characteristics include steeply pitched roofs and front-facing gables. The Carpenter Gothic style is a variation of the Gothic revival style and features vertical board and batten wooden siding. Uniform vertical board cover the exterior and battens. Narrow wooden strips cover the seams between the boards. Italianate architecture had its heyday between 1840 and 1880. The Oregon and Huffman historic districts offer stellar examples of Italianate homes. Homes are generally regular and rectangular in plan. Windows, porches, and doorways are ornate and are emphasized with decorative lintels and hoods. Italianate roofs tend to have a low pitch, sometimes featuring a square cupola on the top. Cornices are often characterized by projecting eaves with large brackets in various shapes and spacing. Brackets, arranged individually or in pairs, are typically adorned with wide decorative bands and sometimes panel moldings. Italianate windows feature 1/1 or 2/2 glazing and exuberant trims such as U-shaped crowns with brackets and pedimented crowns decorated with hoods. The style also popularized arched and curved window and door frames in America. Italianate doors are often paired or single and include large, elaborate hoods supported by brackets. Doors feature large glass panes rather than half panes or smaller panes in side lights. Italianate porches are generally smaller and less ornately decorated than other Victorian styles. Simpler versions of Italianate homes retain the cornice detail and arch windows with hood moles on the facade only. Octagon architecture was a short-lived style popular from 1850 to 1860. This 8-sided design was used for houses and barns with windows on all 8 sides and a cupola and belvedere over the building's central hall for ventilation. Interior rooms were typically square or rectangle with triangular spaces used for dressing rooms, closets, and other storage. Dayton's finest example is the Exhibition Building, affectionately known as the Roundhouse on Main, the former site of the Montgomery County Fairgrounds. The Second Empire style is an elegant style based on the architecture that dominated France during the reign of Napoleon III. The style was quickly adapted in America for large, formal residences and was most popular from 1860 to 1890. One of the finest examples of Second Empire-style architecture in Ohio is the Bosler Mansion in the St. Anne's Hill Historic District. The South Park Historic District also has several Second Empire homes. Second Empire residences typically have a simple, highly symmetrical box plan and incorporate many elements of the Italianate architecture. The style's defining feature is the mansard roof, named after the Frenchman who designed a rectangle roof with a curved or slightly sloped sides. The large roof allows for regular-sized rooms in the attic space. Roofs are almost always shingled with slate, often in stylized decorative patterns. Facades typically have a projecting central portion and is divided into symmetrical sections. Windows are long and elaborate. The main featured windows are often placed over the entrance and arranged in pairs. Entrances dominate the facade and are typically elevated above ground level by several steps with a double or extra wide single door. Entrances are often highlighted with a central projecting pavilion or canopy. Stick style, as the name denotes, are frame homes constructed with decorative board overlays called stickwork. The style was popular between 1870 and 1900. More highly stylized and decorative versions of stick style are sometimes referred to as Eastlake. Charles Locke Eastlake, an English architect, designed furniture to be closely related to the structure of the object. Stick style applied these aggressively turned wooden elements to architecture, especially on elaborate porches with fret-sawn railings, spindles, and trim. Porches and trim were sometimes added to older, simpler homes. McPherson Town offers Dayton's most remarkable collection of these homes. Eastlake porches are also common throughout Dayton's oldest historic districts and were often added to older Greek Revival and Federal-era homes. This asymmetrical design features interesting angles and wings highlighted by exterior stickwork, which is meant to evoke the home's structural elements. Stick-style homes generally exhibit a strong vertical and angular emphasis. Roof lines are complex and frequently feature decorative shingle patterns. Other stick-style characteristics include wraparound porches, detailing, and radiating spindle details in gable peaks. Windows are usually large with 1/1 or 2/2 glass panels. Windows are frequently paired and fitted within the patterns created by the stickwork. Shingle-style architecture is a uniquely American style that flourished between 1879 and 1890. A fine example of a shingle-style home can be found in the Grafton Hill Historic District. Most or all of the entire buildings are covered with shingles. This style grew out of the earlier stick and Queen Anne styles. Irregular elevations convey a feeling of openness. Other features include free-flowing, open floor plans and connections between interior and exterior spaces. Open porches and irregular roof lines often contribute to the general picturesque or rustic effect of these homes. Queen Anne homes are usually asymmetrical in plan and include bays, towers, shifts in the roof level, and other irregular shapes. This fanciful style was very popular from 1880 to 1910. Queen Anne homes are common throughout many of Dayton's historic neighborhoods. Some of the finest and largest concentration of Queen Anne homes can be found in the Huffman Historic District on Linden Avenue and the Grafton Hill Historic District on Central Avenue. Towers and turrets and large chimneys dominate the roof lines. Irregular and varied wall planes are typical of Queen Anne homes, as are different kinds of elaborate architectural ornamentation. Irregular shapes and intricate roof lines with multiple pinnacles and large wraparound porches are other common features. The free classic Queen Anne is a subtype of the Queen Anne style that became popular after 1890. Homes built in this style often use classical details such as columns or Palladian windows rather than the spindle decorations common on homes constructed in the pure Queen Anne style. The architect Henry Hobson Richardson popularized the Romanesque Revival style between 1840 and 1900. Churches, many of them lost to demolition, were the dominant example of this style in Dayton. 2 Romanesque Revival churches have been adapted for reuse in Wright Dunbar Village and St. Anne's Hill. The design is dominated by wide arches of varying sizes reminiscent of the buildings in ancient Rome. Richardson became so famous that this style is often called Richardsonian. Buildings in this style are asymmetrical, but also carefully balanced with multiple stories, complicated roof systems, and round towers. Materials are rough-faced, rusticated, square stones often in reddish hues. Patterned masonry adorns arches and spirals, and columns and pilasters are decorated with ornate spirals and leaf designs. And one of Ohio's finest examples of the chateau-esque style of architecture, the Leo Traxler Mansion, was lost to 2 fires in 2023. We include photos of this remarkable home for posterity. Preservation Dayton Incorporated has a 3D LiDAR scan and Revit model of the original home and floor plans of a similar mansion also designed by the Traxler's architect, Henry Highstand. Our hope is that new residential construction on the site will emulate the architectural features of the Traxler Mansion as much as possible. Richard Morris Hunt popularized the chateau-esque style after studying in France. Buildings of this style are very rare in the United States. They are almost always architect designed and intended to impress. The style features flamboyant details applied over asymmetrical masonry facades. Steeply pitched hip roofs, usually of tile, are often pierced by decorative gabled wall dormers. Low relief carvings often decorate dormer gables and window surrounds. Chimneys are tall and have decorative corbelled tops. Entry doors often have slightly curved arches or a flattened arch with an ogee arch molding. Interest in colonial revival or Georgian-style architecture was inspired by the Philadelphia Centennial of 1876. The style was most popular between 1890 and 1930. Fine examples of colonial revival or Georgian-style homes can be found in the Dayton View, South Park, and Huffman historic districts. The umbrella term encompasses several colonial architectural features, including Georgian, Adams, and Federal styles. Homes are essentially rectangular in form with pedimented gable dormers. Design elements include a central entry with a symmetrical facade, multi-paned window, often with shutters and end chimneys. Sunrooms or porches are often located at one or both ends. Roofs are usually flat and railed, serving as a deck for a second-story bedroom. Revival homes often appear identical to their original colonial prototypes. Paired columns are usually a dead giveaway of colonial revival houses, while their prototypes use single columns for porches and entryways. The Dutch colonial revival style evolved between the 1880s and 1940s. The style is inspired by the original buildings in American colonies settled by the Dutch. Unlike other revival styles, the more informal Dutch colonial style is reminiscent of farmhouses and barns. Several variations of the Dutch colonial style are interspersed throughout many Dayton historical districts. One of the finest examples is on Central Avenue in Grafton Hill. The style's dominant feature is the gambrel roof with changing pitches, including a pointed top and flared sides. The double pitch roof has been grafted onto structures ranging from tiny houses to impressive two-story mansions to fire stations and commercial buildings. Dutch revival houses typically have dormers or a single long dormer for more usable space. Some houses have elements in common with craftsman style. Others feature neoclassical details such as Greek columns, Palladian windows, or Adams-esque mantels. Paneled shutters with cutout designs are also popular. Houses can be clad in stucco, hand-split shingles, clapboard, or brick, as were the vernacular originals. Sears was a major promoter, featuring 10 or more Dutch colonial kit houses. Bungalow and craftsman-style homes were inspired by British travel lodges in Bengal, India. The style first appeared in California in 1905 and quickly became a favorite American style until the 1930s. Remarkable bungalows and craftsman homes are interspersed among older homes in almost every Dayton historic district. Primary characteristics include 1.5-story construction, gabled roofs with the slope facing the street, roof dormers, and ample front porches. Windows are typically casement or double-hung. Early bungalows feature floor-length windows reminiscent of the Greek Revival style. Others use transoms and side lights similar to the colonial Revival houses. Many bungalows utilize the craftsman ideal of architecture and design with natural elements like stone and variations in texture. The prairie style was created and molded by Frank Lloyd Wright for the Midwestern landscape. Wright and other architects popularized this style from about 1900 to 1920. The style melded the values of the arts and crafts movement with an emphasis on nature, craftsmanship, and simplicity. Along with architect Louis Sullivan, who rejected derivative styles of architecture to develop a distinctly American architecture rooted in a sense of place and modern elements like flat planes and minimal ornamentation. Stunning examples of prairie-style homes can be found in the Dayton View, Grafton Hill, and Squirrel Forest historic districts. Prairie style emphasizes a horizontal design with long building facades and wide overhanging eaves. Construction is almost exclusively masonry with longer and thinner bricks and extremely narrow mortar joints. Trim is almost non-existent, or simple bands to ensure that homes blend in with their surroundings as much as possible. Flat or shallow-hipped roof lines, rows of windows and bands of stone, wood, or brick across the surface are other dominant features. Cantilevers often extend horizontal lines with other vertical support, and vertical downspouts are often eliminated or carefully placed. Other features of prairie style include strong geometry and massing, and typically large central chimneys, brick or stucco exteriors, open, asymmetrical floor plans, connected indoor and outdoor spaces, and interior wood banding. The Spanish colonial revival was popular from about 1915 to 1940. American architects departed from importing architectural styles from the East Coast and became inspired by the Spanish missions that dominated the West and Southwest. The simpler mission revival style is a subtype of the Spanish colonial revival style. Mission-style buildings feature smooth stucco construction, low-hip tiled roofs, balconies, and scrollwork. Windows are either straight or arched and frequently use casements units. A few Spanish and Mission Revival homes can be found in St. Anne's Hill, Northwest Dayton, and Oakwood. Two of Dayton's remaining examples of the El Morado apartments in McPherson Town and the Grand Avenue apartments in Grafton Hill. Two of Dayton's remaining examples is the El Morado apartments in McPherson Town and the Grand Avenue apartments in Grafton Hill. Four-square homes are one of very few house types that can be called essentially American. This style was dubbed the American Foursquare by Glenn Labin, former editor of Old House Journal. Four-square homes can be found throughout Dayton, with the Grafton-Rockwood Row Historic District offering one of the most varied and stunning collections. This dominant architectural style of the 1930s and 40s is characterized by streamlined, horizontal structures with flat roofs. The four-square style is also sometimes called the box or the double cube for its boxy outline and interior plan of four nearly equal-sized rooms per floor. This architectural style was marketed and advertised for its Americanness. The four-square house proved to be so popular that thousands were built in America's post-Victorian suburbs and in the countryside as well. Art Deco and Art Modern styles exist primarily in a few iconic downtown Dayton commercial buildings. Art Deco was inspired by the International Exhibition of Modern Decorative and Industrial Arts in Paris in 1925. The exhibition aimed to symbolize the dawn of the modern era and a renewed exuberance and optimism following World War I. The iconic Holman Building on West 2nd Street is Dayton's finest example of the Art Deco style, which dominated the construction of modern skyscrapers from 1925 to 1940. The extreme verticality of the style is softened with stepbacks and embellished with zigzags, chevrons, and other geometric motifs. The former AT&T building is another stunning Art Deco building. By the 1930s, the angular, vertical, and geometric forms of Art Deco gave way to the more streamlined, horizontal, and curving forms of Art Moderne. Dayton's finest Art Moderne building is the Talbot Tower at Jefferson and Ludlow Streets. The curved, streamlined design dominates the window massing and decorative bands of circular ribbing and decoration. Masonry with stone, concrete, and stucco were the dominant materials of this style, which was popular through 1945. Mid-century modern architecture evolved from 1945 to 1969. Earlier, visionary architects like Frank Lloyd Wright laid the stage for this style with site-specific designs, an emphasis on horizontal lines, the consideration of flow between spaces, and the use of wood paneling. Fine examples of mid-century modern homes can be found in the DeWeese Ridgecrest neighborhood of the Catalpa area of Dayton and the city of Kettering. The geometric lines of this style are regular and rigorous. Other features of mid-century modern homes include floor-to-ceiling windows, open floor plans, built-ins, an emphasis on functionality, and stripping away for ornamentation. Small steps going up and down between rooms create split-level spaces. Mid-century modern homes often have partial walls or cabinets of varying heights to create different spatial depths. Sliding glass doors and other expansive panes of glass allow light to enter rooms from multiple angles. Rooms have multiple outdoor views and multiple access points to encourage integration with nature and outdoor living.